Namaste, my name is Ojasvi Chandok and I welcome you to Series 4 of the Festival of Bharat. We are a platform that believes in having open and civilized discourse. And today, here with us, we have François Gautier ji. François ji is a journalist and an author of several books which focuses on bringing awareness about the history of Hindus. François ji, namaste and welcome.
Namaste.
François ji, my first question to you is that your book, Rewriting Indian History, makes the case that India's greatness is not limited to our history, but in fact, it continues till today. Could you please tell us what inspired you and what motivated you to make this case?
And so, I have been living for a long time in India, and most Westerners, come to India because they feel that they can give something to India. But in my case, I felt from the beginning that India was giving to me, that there was a knowledge in this country, very precious knowledge, which used to be roaming around the world, that some civilization like Egypt or Greece or the Celts knew about, but which have been lost to most of the countries. And in India, that knowledge still exists. What is the purpose of life? What is birth? What is death? What is consciousness? What is an avatar? How God manifests himself or herself at different times using different scriptures. And so the moment I came to India, I felt that knowledge, and I felt that I had to give back something to India. Hence all the books that I have been writing, hence the fact that I always felt that Indian history was not written as it happened, but as people wanted it to happen, particularly the colonizers of India, and then later, those who took over from the colonizers and who had a vested interest in showing, in downgrading India, because most of Indian history, first the dates, have been predated. If you take the Vedas, for instance, they're much older than it is there in the history books, and then there are many theories on the history of India, which are false, like the Aryan invasion theory, which says that white people came to India, they colonized the Dravidians and the tribals, they imposed, the Hindu religion, the caste system, and hence there is a divide in India, which we can still see today. Today, there are still some politicians who say we are the original inhabitants of India, and we have been invaded. So it's very important to correct Indian history, and I felt it was my duty to do it as well as I could. And I have done it. I have done it, and I think I have done it well because there are a lot of information available. It's not like you have to search long and far, but it is there. It is there. There are so much information. So I have tried to rewrite Indian history as it happened, not as it had been written. Hence, all my books, and the latest one is called An Entirely New History of India, which came out recently, and there from all the controversies, from the fact that Alexander the Great are supposed to conquer India so easily, but actually was wounded and died from his wound. He encountered fierce resistance in India. He had a lot of trouble in India. But on the other hand, he was interested in Indian philosophy. He talked with sannyasins and sadhus and was fascinated by the knowledge that existed in India, as I am today, 2,000 years later, to Ashoka, the myth of Ashoka having converted to Buddhism because he saw the horror wars in the Kalinga battlefield, but actually Ashoka's conversion to Buddhism was more political because there was a tussle between the Jains and Buddhists at that time, and they were vying for the attention of emperors and kings. So to counter the Jain, uh, he converted to Buddhism. So there are so many controversies, and I have gone through each one of them and tried to, as much as possible, show what happened in reality. This is my contribution.
Right. Francois, you talked about how Indian history has been written and rewritten. And if that is the case, and if that's been happening for generations, how do you think that we as a civilization understand our roots and our culture? because that way, I mean, we have so many various sources of history and so many varieties and diversification. So how do we really understand our civilizational roots?
No, the problem is that most Indians have no clue about the greatness of their civilization, except a tiny minority, because the education that is imparted in India to Indian kids, both in in the level of schools and universities, is Western education. I mean, when the British left, the first Prime Minister of India, for good and bad reasons, just took over everything from the British, including the education system. So today, no doubt, Indian students are brilliant, but they're just good for export because they have not any Indianness in their education. I mean, if you take Kalidasa, for instance, one of the greatest poets ever in humanity, that many Westerners are put on par with Homer, or with Shakespeare. He's not taught in school. Even Kalidasa, translated from the Sanskrit, his poetry and his prose is of such divine quality, but he's not taught in India. Take, pranayama or meditation, which are now in the West, you see that Hollywood stars practice yoga, hatha yoga fluently. But here in India, it is not taught in school. And yet he would make children, give them suppleness and Indianness. Take pranayama, for instance, which again is being accepted in the West. There are scientific studies that show that pranayama cools down the nervous system, makes it for a clear mind. Not taught in India. Sri Aurobindo, one of the greatest philosophers, contemporary philosophers, his life divine, his synthesis of yoga, have been praised again by Westerners. In my country, France, Sri Aurobindo has been praised by André Malraux or so many others. But he's not taught in, not even in philosophy curriculum. So it's a tragedy that Indians know so little about the greatness of the civilization, and that most Indian intellectuals look at India through Western eyes. Most of the journalists in India, most of the intelligentsia looks at India with a very critical eye. They keep, if you read newspapers or look at television in India, you're always shocked because it's a very negative outlook on India by Indians. Why is it? Because there is no Indianness in their culture. So they are looking at India through Western eyes, which is always very critical because the West has a sentiment of superiority over India. This is what I wanted to say. Otherwise, is that the fact that India's image abroad is always so negative. Even today, the perception of Indian history present there, whether it's Article 370, when it was removed by Mr. Modi, there was such a negative coverage abroad because the West has a sentiment that they are superior to India. So we need Indians who are proud to be Indians. That is the only remedy. But as long as you do not change the education system in India and teach children true Indian history as it happened with heroes and heroines. As a Frenchman, I'm taught about Napoleon, who was a great warrior. I'm taught about Jeanne d'Arc, she was a great woman warrior. But in India, there are thousands of great women warriors, from Aliabai to Rani of Jhansi to Rani Keto Chennamma to Tarabai. So many of them. So, but Indian children are not taught about them. They're not taught about the greatness of the heroes, heroine, poets, writers. So as a result, Indians do not know about their own civilization, and that is a great tragedy.
Right, but why do you think this is? Why is it that that yoga is practiced in the West, and here students are really not taught about it? And how is it that people from outside of India are inspired by our culture and our heritage, and we are not here in India taught our own history? What do you think is the reason for that?
So there are quite a few reasons. I think first, Mr. Nehru in 1947 shows a Western system of education, a Western system of democracy, a Western judicial system. Everything he took from the British without adopting it to the Indian psyche. So that is the first reason. The second reason is that India is under attack also. particularly now, within India, there is a Marxist lobby. I have nothing against Marxism except that it's dead in the world. Even the Chinese do not practice real communism now. I mean, Stalin is seen as a butcher. Mao Zedong has been, demystified. But in India, Marxism is very much rooted in India, and with a favor, with a faith, and with a vigor that is gone from the West. So you have an entire generation after generation of journalists and intelligentsia who have a Marxist outlook on India. So this is the second reason, and the third reason is that Hindus particularly lack pride. They lack pride, and more than pride, they lack a sense of defending their own culture when it is under attack, because now the Christian missionaries all over India, I think in Tamil Nadu or in Andhra Pradesh, there are at least 10 to 20% Christians. Officially, there are 3%, but the conversions are going at such a pace that there are 10 to 20% Christians in Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh and Kerala alone, and Kerala more, maybe 40% Christians. Then the Islamization of India is also there. It's also a danger that Islam, which used to have a more open faith, so I saw it in Kashmir in the early days, a more Sufi faith, a more tolerant faith, has become radicalized over the years because many Indians, Muslims went to work in the Gulf countries and came back more radicalized, and then in turn imposed this, on their children, on their wives. So there is a Islamization of India, there is a Christianization of India, there's a Marxism attack on India. So many factors make that, Hindus are losing faith in their own culture, in their own religion, their own spirituality. Mm-hmm. And for that, we need not only education, we need I would say we need a second Kurukshetra war. We need to face the enemy without hate, without, in the spirit of the Bhagavad Gita, the enemy has to be faced in India by Indians with a sense of not only the greatness of their culture, of their spirituality, but that it is the last in the world and it is under attack, so they need to defend it. And you cannot defend just with words, and goodwill and, goody-goody. You need to defend, if necessary, physically. And I feel, as a Westerner, as a lover of India, that Indians do not stand for their own ethos, and that is another tragedy.
Right. François, you talked about the Second Kurukshetra War. And I think before fighting the Second Kurukshetra War, it is extremely important that we first understand our roots and our journey as a civilization. So if you could sort of encapsulate the vast history of Hindu civilization in simple stages and cycles, could you please summarize what the Hindu history is? What happened to us, where we are now, and where is it that we are going as a nation forward? If it could be a bit of a story, but if you could just please interpret it and explain it briefly.
Yeah. So for me, what is behind Hinduism, what props up Hinduism is a spirituality. It's a universal spirituality because you see in the world, most religions say, my God is only true, or I either I will convert you or maybe I will kill you if you don't believe in my God. Mm-hmm. But Hindus have this knowledge that God has many faces, that God is one, but he manifests himself or herself in different times, with different faces. So that's in India. There are a million gods. There is at least a million gods and deities, and this has been seen as a sign of paganism. But actually, it's a knowledge that God is many, and he manifests at different times under different names. So this spirituality, which propped up Hinduism, first has to be recognized by Hindus. They have to understand that it's not about temples and pujas. What is behind that? What props up? And I think there are many contemporary masters who have tried to explain in rational terms what is spirituality. What is the reason if you put a putu, there's gland here, pineal gland, which is very important. So when you put some saffron here or some sandalwood, you stimulate that gland. What is the purpose, behind a puja, behind adoring water, behind adoring fire? There is a purpose behind everything. So unless we try to rationalize this knowledge which props up Hinduism, it will remain a ritual. So this is very important that it be understood. For me, again, as a Westerner, as an outsider, this knowledge is very precious because the world today has many questions. If you see the United States, out of 5 couples, 3 end up in divorce. Out of 10 people, 7 are depressed, are taking some antidepressants. So people are asking that question in the world. What is the purpose? Why life? Why death? There is that simple, the knowledge in the West is very simplistic that the Christians think that we live only one life and it's over. According to what you live, you go either to paradise or to purgatory or to hell. It's a very simplistic notion. The Muslims think that, if you kill infidel, you go to heaven and you enjoy, I don't know how many virgins. It's very simplistic again. But the Hindus have this knowledge that every action that you do in this life has a repercussion in this life or in other life, that you are born again and again because there is a spark of the divine in you that gets perfected with each life. And this is the purpose of rebirth. So it's an infinite precious knowledge, which the world needs today. So the first thing that Hindus have to be conscious of that knowledge. The second thing is that Hindus have to protect that knowledge. And the third thing that knowledge goes onto the world. Now, Swami Vivekananda started that process when he went to Chicago for the World Religion Conference. He started spreading that knowledge. And today, indeed, that knowledge has spread much more. We see that Hatha Yoga has taken the world by storm. Everybody in the world practices Hatha Yoga. Meditation has been recognized as something which is wonderful for the nervous system. Pranayama is something also which is being recognized. Ayurveda, there are some countries like Germany when Ayurveda is taking root because it's an ancient system in these times of COVID. It's an ancient system that is natural without side effects, that recognize that behind every sickness there's a root and one needs to cure the root and not the cause, not the sickness itself. So these things are happening now, but not enough. I think first the Hindus needs to be conscious of their knowledge, secondly to stand for it, and thirdly to spread it to the world so that the vision of Swami Vivekananda or Sri Aurobindo that India becomes the spiritual of the leader of the world will happen.
Mm-hmm. Right. Francois ji, there has been a lot of unrest and a lot of chaos, especially in recent times. And why us Hindus, who otherwise are a very inclusive, peaceful community, so angry? And do you think that Hindus have had enough and are finally making themselves heard in terms of their presence and their contribution to the society?
So see, Hindus are more than 1 billion in the world. It's one of the largest communities in the world. And they are one of the most educated. If you see Hindus, wherever they have been, whether it is Mauritius when they exported themselves as bonded labor, or whether it's United States where they are, IT engineers, they've always stopped. They always done well. They pay their taxes. They don't riot. They don't burn cars. They don't kill other people. They're respected, but they're extremely disunited. So this 1 billion, 1.1 billion Hindu community in the world has no conscience of its power, of its lobbying power. Because if you see the Jews, they are much smaller in number, but they are very powerful lobby because they're united. Jews in the United States are very, very powerful lobby that influence even the election of presidents and of congressmen. Mm-hmm. The Hindu is very disunited. That is one of the tragedy of Hinduism, is that for good and bad reasons, because Hinduism is also a very individualistic religion, spirituality. It's yourself, your own consciousness, your own effort, your own sadhana. But today, the problem with Hinduism, one of the most educated and most affluent, because Hindus are doing well. Most Hindus in the world are doing very well. You can't say that Hindus are poor when they export themselves. They do well. In the United States, in Canada, in England. I think in England, 60% of the doctors are Indians, many of them Hindus. So the importance of Hindus may be recognized by the world, but not recognized by Hindus themselves. So unless there's a unity that happens, and I thought that under Mr. Modi, it would happen in a more forceful and more important manner. Unless there's a world Hindu body which influences people, influences nation. It's definitely a problem, and I see that it's not happening fast enough.
Right. I think in one of your books, which is titled In Defense of Hindus, one of the most marvelous people on this planet ever, many scholars have also stated that Hindu civilization ranks at the greatest in terms of its contribution to this planet and to the society. What, according to you, is that makes Hindus so special and different than other communities?
So you're talking about the tolerance of Hindus?
Mhm. And their contribution, because you did, I mean, I think one of your books was titled that Hindus are one of the most marvelous people on this planet. So what is it about their contribution and their characteristics or personality that makes them special?
So it's two different things. I'll first touch upon tolerance. Now, Hindu tolerance is a weakness, I think. I mean, you can be tolerant if you're strong, but when you're weak, and we have seen politically that in terms of the conflict with China, that there is a weakness in the Indian psyche, that it wants to, we've seen that Mr. Modi twice invited the Chinese president, and inviting him in a very grand way, once in Ahmedabad, and once in Mahabalipuram in the south, and, in a beautiful Hindu manner, that welcome, I welcome you with open arms, I show you the greatness of my country, I spare no expense for you, but in return, he was stabbed in the back. In return, he was stabbed in the back. So I think this is the wrong kind of tolerance. It's the wrong kind of tolerance. The true Hindu tolerance is to accept the diversity of man. That I, as a Westerner, as a white man, as a born Catholic, I come to India, and I start reporting in India with my cameras and my notebooks, and I am accepted. That people accept me even if I'm ignorant, and even if I come from a different religion, a different ethnicity, they accept me. This is a true tolerance. But the tolerance of accepting to be beaten up, to be humiliated, is a wrong kind of tolerance. I'm sorry. And for that, we need to follow two people. One is the Buddha, not the Buddha himself, but what his disciples did of Buddhism, the absolute creed of non-violence, which exposed, Buddhism to be entirely wiped out of India by the Arab invaders, and to Mahatma Gandhi, who also made, out of non-violence an absolute theorem, and to the point that he told the Jews that, you let yourself be killed by Hitler. He told the Ethiopian, you let yourself be run over by Mussolini. This is wrong. It's not the spirit, the message of the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita says that you fight when your country is in danger, your culture in danger, your women in danger, and you fight physically, knowing, that only the body perishes, the soul is eternal. So this is the true message of nonviolence, but it has been forgotten in India. So the Hindu tolerance is a myth, and I think I would not praise Hindus for that. I think it's a weakness, and today we see again and again, that Hindus are slapped, they're made fun of, they're killed, and still they're tolerant. I think Hindus need to fight. Today, they need to fight for the culture, they need to fight for their children, for their wives, they need to stand up even physically if need be. The second thing, what Hindus contribute to the world, of course, I mean, I said it before, they contributed Hatha Yoga, meditation, pranayama, Ayurveda. It's been disconnected in the West. In the West, people practice Hatha Yoga not knowing that it's a gift from Hinduism, because it's been disconnected even by gurus. The gurus who went to America, particularly in America, for the purpose of reaching out to Christians and white people, they try to universalize that knowledge, disconnect it from the Hindu group, from its Hindu roots, which I think is wrong. I have told, Amritananda Mai, and I've told Sri Shiva Shankar also, that I think it's wrong. It's a Hindu knowledge. It's a gift of Hinduism to the world. Hatha yoga, meditation, pranayama, Ayurveda. So these are the real gift to the world of Hinduism. About tolerance, as you've heard, I disagree that Hindus are tolerant. I think they become weak, and they need to stand up and fight.
Right, right. Francois ji, you talked about Narendra Modi ji. And my question to you is that do you think our PM Narendra Modi ji is somebody who learns from history and doesn't repeat it? And I ask this because a lot of people have suggested that he is soft in some areas. And even though we do
What?
appreciate,
That is what, sorry?
he's sort of soft in some areas when it comes to decision making, and these are claims that people have made. A lot of them have made this claim, and of course we do appreciate all the challenges that and the hard work that he's doing for this country. But do you think that he may be going soft in some areas like maybe Vajpayee ji did?
Right. So, no, first, I would like to say that I think Mr. Modi is the prime minister that India has been waiting for 75 years.
Mhm.
No prime minister in India has reached this kind of vision and hard work. He's
Right.
the first, even as the chief minister of Gujarat, I knew him then. Uh, he showed that a politician is all about hard work for the people. Because in India, this is also one perversion. When the British were there, they were very few, they were uncorrupt because they were making enough money, and they were able to rule a vast number of people. But at independence, the Congress ethos has been first, I work for my party, and secondly, I work for myself, and forget about the people. So Mr. Modi has shown, hard work for the people, and I think he made his ministers. I saw it in Gujarat. He made his ministers follow that ethos that you work for the people. They come to you, you take notes, and you see what you can do. Now, as the chief minister of Gujarat, he was an extraordinary man. And I think when he came to power, the first term, also extraordinary man, I would say divinely inspired, who made some decision which has been criticized, but which I think were right. The demonetization was right. There is so much corruption in India. It's a cancer that is eating India from the inside. And he was right. The problem is that India is such a vast country. It's so difficult to govern. There are so many people. There are too many people in India. I remember G.R.D. Tata, who was the pioneer of industrialization in India, said, whatever progress we've made is eaten up because there are too many people in India. And it's a fact that India is such a difficult country to govern. So that is the first problem for Mr. Modi. The second problem is that from Gujarat, he was in the center of India. He had an ear on the ground. He met a lot of people. Then he went to Delhi, which is, very. You're from Delhi. I go often to Delhi. It's very far away from India, Delhi, and he's surrounded by 7 layers of security. So probably the highest security in the world. 7 layers of bureaucrats, and so he's lost a bit touch with what the people of India think and want. I think in the second term particularly, and of course the COVID didn't help. The fact that the COVID made him more, isolated. That he had to do so many things online. So this was a factor that added. It's karma or fate, or I don't know how you call it. So definitely, as a defender of Hindus and a militant defender of Hindu, I feel he's gone soft. I feel he's, lost a bit of his focus and his drive, and that he's become a Hindu also. We were talking about Hindus, their tolerance and their Hindu goodness. He wants to be the prime minister of all Indians, and rightly so, of Sikhs and Muslims and Christians and Hindus, all of them. But in doing so, he has faltered, again, as a Hindu, he has faltered he's gone overboard. He's gone overboard trying to please everybody, especially trying to please the minorities. If a Dalit is killed, he will go out of his way to say, oh, my heart bleeds, and he'll call the mother. But if Hindus are killed in the most brutal manners, like these sadhus, were killed, in the most cruel manner. He doesn't say a word. So there's a bit of resentment growing up amongst, Hindus, especially the one who are more radical like me, though I'm not a Hindu, that Mr. Modi has neglected the people who elected him. Because let's face it, he was elected by 99%, 98% Hindus, maybe 2% of Christians and Muslims. His vote bank is Hindus, and the Hindus have elected him, and they expect him, in return to protect them, protect the temples which have been taken over, protect the Hindus who have been attacked, protect the Hindu custom which are being attacked by the Supreme Court and so many courts in India and so many newspapers. But to keep a distance, to show that he's a fair prime minister for all Indians, he has refrained himself from intervening. I still think that he has a vision. I still think that he's the only one. He's a million times better than the Congress. That he has a vision of what should be done. We see it, in Kashmir. We see it in so many places. But nevertheless, he has become soft in some areas, yeah, and he's not conscious of it. I have written to him. I have some access to him. But there's a certain arrogance also in Mr. Modi, which probably was there before, latently, but came to the fore. I have been so many times to his residence, to Racecourse Road, where he lives in Delhi. I've interviewed other prime ministers there, Mr. Vajpayee, Mr. Gujral. It's not only a fortress, but it's a place of immense beauty and luxury. So it's like a cocoon, and definitely with the power that Mr. Modi has today, I would say he's probably the prime minister of India who has most power, because he has charisma. So he's managed to, conquer, to flatter, to, charm all the high bureaucrats around him. He has immense power. The minister he has reigned in, no minister can do anything of, more than 5-10 crores without the okay of the PM. So Mr. Modi has immense power today. So there is certain arrogance that has come into him. I think, I may be wrong.
Right. Francois ji, as a Hindu yourself, what does Hindu nationalism mean to you? And talking from a historical perspective, why is the rise of Hindu nationalism and the RSS significant for India?
You see, Hindu nationalism is a must, because most Hindus are not proud to be Hindus. We see Hindus in the US. I have seen so many. I've given lectures in American universities, like recently I gave in Atlanta. There are 3,000 Indian students in Atlanta University, most of them Hindus. If you give a lecture I gave a lecture on the need to rewrite Indian history, 10 out of 3,000, 10 turn up. So lack of Hindu nationalism, lack of Hindu pride, is another cancer that's eating up India. So it's important that national growth, and I think the RSS and other bodies in India have tried to do that, but they have been marginalized. They have been accused of, it's a crazy thing that, people have been equating Hindu fundamentalism with Islamic fundamentalism. I mean, no Hindus will hijack 4 planes and ram them on towers full of people. No Hindus will think of that. Yet, they have put on par the same thing. Hindus are as dangerous. Even Mr. Rahul Gandhi said the same thing to the American ambassador. Hindu fundamentalism is as dangerous as Islamic fundamentalism. It's an absolute absurdity, because the facts contradict it. Every persecuted religion in the world found refuge in India because of Hindus, not because of Muslims or Christians. From the Christian Syrians to the Parsis to the Armenians to the Tibetans today, every religious persecution and found refuge in India, and they practice freely their religion here in India. So, as a lover of India, it angers me. It makes me furious to see that Hindus themselves cannot, in a coherent manner, defend, their tolerance, their acceptance of the others, and accept to be put on par with, Islamic terrorism. So it's important that nationalism goes to India. It's important that Hindus feel proud to be Hindus. It's a huge task. I think only Mr. Modi can do it. You have to change the curriculum system. You have to teach your young kids about Rani Kito Chennamma in Karnataka, Tarabai in Maharashtra, Aliabai Holkar in Madhya Pradesh, all the great Maharana Pratap in Rajasthan. You have to teach them in a pan way. All India, all India should know about the heroes and heroines and feel proud that I'm proud to be Hindu. But it's not happening. Unfortunately, it is not happening. So, and again, only Mr. Modi can do it. And my hope, my prayer that this man came for this purpose, for this revolution that needs to happen. But it cannot happen from Delhi. It cannot happen from Delhi unless, I've been saying that again, and I even tried to tell Mr. Modi that unless the capital of India is shifted to the center of India, where it will be more, in touch with the rest of India, you cannot govern India from Delhi. It's okay, for the British. Before they were in Calcutta and all that. It's okay for the British, but it's not okay for an Indian government. You cannot govern with bureaucrats who make orders without understanding the psyche of Tamil Nadu or the psyche of Kerala or the psyche of Madhya Pradesh. You cannot have bureaucrats, make decisions in faraway Delhi, sitting on the desk, isolated from the rest of India. And I thought Mr. Modi would, because he's a man from Gujarat, from central India, but he's just ordered a new parliament in Delhi.
Mm-hmm.
So, Sri Aurobindo, I am a disciple of Sri Aurobindo, and he was a nationalist. He was one of the first nationalists who thought that the British should be evicted from India by force if necessary. And indeed, his brother manufactured bombs in the basement of Sri Aurobindo's house. Now, Sri Aurobindo, of course, left politics and then retired in Pondicherry, where he worked on his yoga. But when he saw, in 1946, 1947, 1948, what happened to India, the path that India was taking away from its psyche, away from nationalism, away from, the true values of Hinduism, he was, I think, as great a yogi he was shattered. The photo of him, the last photo of him, and the mother of Pondicherry's companion said that, he's suffering, that, so I am, I am not a yogi, but I am suffering to see that, Indians do not want to recognize their own value, their own greatness, and stand up to the enemies that are fighting against them, whether it is the Chinese, whether it is Marxism within, whether it is Western, hostility towards Mr. Modi and the BJP government, which was democratically elected. It pains me, but what to do? This is karma, okay?
Right. Francois ji, talking about how Hindus do not take pride in their own civilization and heritage, do you think that a role that media plays sort of prevents us from doing so? Because, for instance, if I have to search about our history, or not even our history, but about the recent events that are going on, I will find easily 20 articles who will sort of which will sort of prevent me from understanding the issue from the Hindu perspective. So, do you think that the media also plays a continuous part in preventing us from recognizing our civilizational heritage?
Yeah. So two answers to your question. One, yes, the media plays a very negative role in India. If I'm a Western correspondent, freshly nominated, arriving in Delhi, I don't have too many preconceptions about India, and I open my newspaper in the morning, Times of India or Hindu, and switch on the NDTV. My first input about India is negative from Indians themselves. So I'm saying, the New York Times guy, you know, who writes such biased and violent articles against India, when you ask him, he says, but I got it from Indians. I got it from you guys. So the first thing, yes, Indian media plays a very negative role. I mean, in 30 years I've been a journalist. I have not seen any change. I thought when Mr. Modi came, there would be a change, more pride in Indian media, but I haven't seen much change. Secondly, yes, Indian media plays a negative role, but again, Hindus are still the majority in India. They're, 800 million, 750 million. Well, they have the money, they have the power, they have the resources. So why can't they start their own media? We see Al Jazeera, which hired the best journalists of BBC and CNN, and does a very professional, very up to date, very technical, very digital television channel to propagate their own Sunni beliefs, in a subtle but nevertheless, it is there. Why can't Hindus do the same? They have the money. There are so many rich Hindus from Ambani to Tata. Why can't they do the same? They start a television channel which propagates Hindu values, with the best talents, with the best technical means. Why can't they do it? Why? Again, because they don't care. Because they don't care. I mean, you are part of a 3% minority, my dear. 3% minority. I mean, all the people I meet in America, when I go to America, the Hindus who care, they are 3% of the majority of Hindus. There are 3-4 million Hindus in America. Out of them, 2-3% are prior to being Hindus and doing something about it. All the rest don't care. They just, my first thing is send my children to Harvard or Oxford or Australia. That's the first, the first thing of a Hindu. Protect my family, make some money. I mean, as a Muslim, I traveled from Paris to Delhi by car. We have 5 cars. My best friend was a French Moroccan Muslim. Every Muslim country we cross, he would say Allahu Akbar. People will open their door, they will give us food, they'll give us shelter, they give us a hookah. Now, if you say Om Namah Shiva in New York to another Hindu, he thinks that you're a crazy man. So there is no brotherhood and sisterhood among Hindus. That's also part of the lack of pride and lack of nationalism. So yes, the media plays a very negative role in India, but no, because the Hindus, if they wanted, they could change that, but they are not doing it.
Right, right. No, I just wanted to understand that why is it all connected that way? That because Hindus do not take pride in their culture, they do not sort of start their own media company. And if that is the case, where does this end? I mean, how do we change this ongoing cycle then?
So see, the Hindu mind was colonized, let's face it also, and colonized with brutality. The, in my books and in the museum I'm building in Pune, I have put an emphasis on the Hindu Holocaust because it's probably the greatest Holocaust that humanity has known. So Hindus' mind have been colonized and traumatized. So there is still, things are like that happen. They're in genes. It's not like you need to think, oh, I've been traumatized, I've been colonized. It's in the genes of Indians now. So there's a fear. There's a fear that makes you cheat because let's face it, there's a lot of cheating in India, a lot of corruption, and there's the fear that makes you look for yourself, only your immediate self and family. So look at the Chinese; they were not colonized. Or the Chinese are proud to the, they go overboard. They go on the other extremity. The Chinese are proud to the point that you can't say anything, and they take offense, and they start, they start canceling the orders for Boeing or for Airbuses, and threatening you. But because the Indian man had been colonized, and the Hindu man particularly had been colonized and traumatized, uh, it's a uphill battle because one would need to fight this to like you speak to a child, you say, come on, now you're 5 years old, stop having bad dreams, face the reality, open your eyes, look, you can do it. So the same thing should be done to Hindus. Someone should be able, and I think some gurus do it, that stand for yourself, look, be a brother and sister, look after you, the poorer Hindus. You don't need a Mother Teresa to look after the Dalits and the lepers, and you can do it yourself. You have the means, you have the number, you have the money. So that will be part of giving back a sense of pride and non-fear and courage to Hindus, because they lack courage. I mean, Mahatma Gandhi said it. He said Muslims are bullies and Hindus are cowards, and I do think he was right. There's a sense of fear amongst Hindus that at the least sign of danger, everybody goes underground. I have seen when I was covering India that at least sign of strike, all Hindus stay, and your parents say, no, don't go out, stay home, it's dangerous. So we need to give back Indians the sense of being a kshatriya, a warrior. This is very important. Hindus have many qualities, but they lost the quality of being a kshatriya.
Right.
Okay, my dear.
Right. Thank you so much, Francois ji. Thank you so much for being here. And to all our viewers, please like, subscribe, and share. And we'll be back with another insightful conversation.
Sure.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste. We hope you enjoyed this Citti Media content. Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.